Didn't Ready? Good evening and welcome to the City of Helena City Commission meeting, July 26, 2021, 6 p.m. This meeting is called to order. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
City Attorney Joden.
Here.
City Manager Harlow Schulk.
Here.
Commissioner Halliday.
Here.
Commissioner Dean.
Here.
Commissioner Logan.
Here.
Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Here.
Welcome to the City Commission meeting, July 26, 2021.
Mayor Collins.
Here. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena City Commission meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide this alternative meeting format in the city's effort to broaden public participation. Please be patient as we may experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome your public commentary. Please read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage and your participation. Would you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board appointments. I'm recommending the following board appointments. Helena Public Arts Committee. Appointment of Jeannie Warden to an interim appointment on the HPAC. Term will begin upon appointment and expires on July 31st, 2022. Heritage Preservation and Tourism Board. Appointment of Katie Donath to a first term on the Heritage Preservation Tourism Board. Term will begin upon appointment and expires on June 30th, 2024. City Zoning Commission. Appointment of Nicole Anderson to an interim appointment on the City Zoning Commission. Term will begin upon appointment and expire on September 30th, 2023. Any discussion from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I do have one quick question. I know that we just put out a release on all of the other board vacancies. Does that include these ones or do we have more?
We have a few more that came in.
Okay.
Yeah, Mayor, Commissioners, to address Commissioner Dean's question. So these appointments would, some would post the PSA for long-term appointments. So we've tried our best to reflect that in the current PSA and what's been posted on our website. So it's been recently updated. So it should be accurate out there right now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I will move the appointment of Jeannie Ward to an interim appointment on HPAC. Term will begin upon appointment and expire on December 31st, 2022. The appointment of Katie Donath to a first term on the Heritage Preservation and Tourism Board. Term will begin upon appointment and expire on June 30th, 2024. And the appointment of Nicole Anderson to an interim appointment on the City Zoning Commission. Term will begin upon appointment and expire on September 30th, 2023.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Halliday,
Aye.
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Consent agenda. Madam Howell-Schuck.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. I recommend that you entertain a motion to approve claims paid on June 29th, June 30th, July 13th of 2021 in the amounts of $943,339.42, as well as $438,520.55 for a grand total of $1,381,859.97.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'd move to approve claims paid on June 29th and June 30th, 2021 in the amount of $943,339.42 and claims paid on July 13, 2021 in the amount of $438,520.55
Second.
for a grand total of $1,381,859.97.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Halliday,
Aye.
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Bid awards. Manager Howell-Schuck.
I'll introduce it. Thank you, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Mayor, and the commission, you're being asked to entertain a motion to award the bid for the City of Helena Project 18-17. It is the water and sewer main replacement for parallel 6-inch and 12-inch cast iron water mains located in South Dakota Avenue between 3rd Street and Highland Street. They were installed in 1951 and 1953 respectively. This replacement will ensure that these outdated systems and lines are brought up to date, and Director Leland is here tonight if you have further questions for him based on this bid submittal information.
Thank you. Any discussion from the commission? Questions?
I guess, Mr. Mayor, I
Go
do
ahead.
have one question. So I know on here, obviously, it's recommended that we're moving schedules 1 and 3. And I'm wondering if you can talk about, why you're recommending 1 and 3 and not 1, 2, and 3.
Mayor, Commissioner Dean, yes, we're only awarding 1 and 3 is because of budgetary constraints. It just came in and we are seeing skyrocketing costs just because of the material that is going on. And with 2, we had a lot of streetscape that was coming in, and just with the budget, with the transportation where it is it was just very expensive to move the curb and gutter in at this time. So we still have the plans, and as we go further into budgets, maybe this will come back up to a priority list, or we can scale the project down and maybe take the curb, gutter, sidewalk and everything out of it and just do the utilities. But at this point, we're just doing 1 and 3.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Director Leland? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I will move to award bid schedules 1 and 3 of the 2018 water sewer main replacements project number 18-17 to the lowest responsible bidder, Montana Underground Construction, Inc., in the amount of $759,830.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Madam Clerk. Aye.
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 Commissioner O'Loughlin,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Did we do that? Okay. Move to award the City County Building DMV renovation project number 2-40 to Diamond Construction in the amount of $241,600. Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. This project is to renovate the DMV here in the City and County building. Troy Sampson, our Superintendent of Facilities, is out, and I am here to answer questions along with Scott Burke within the Facilities team. But this project will provide more space in the building, and we are recommending Diamond Construction, Inc. and BMY Construction, Inc. were the only two submitted projects. The total bid itself, we are recommending the bid award to Diamond Construction in the amount of $241,000 and $241,600. I'll do that again. And both bids came in lower than the architects had put together for their opinion, and yet Diamond Construction did submit a lower bid based price. We are, though, as Director Leland had shared, experiencing citywide high construction costs just based on materials. Do you have any questions?
Comments or questions for the manager?
Mr. Mayor, I do have one.
Please.
And I think folks in the public might be curious about this. I know in our memo, it talks about that the Lewis and Clark County has committed to paying for these improvements, but can you maybe explain why this is on our agenda and why we award this and not the county?
Sure. Yeah. Yes, I can. Thank you, Commissioner. Great question. So the city and the county share a variety of operations, and this is one of those. Our team is actually the ones in charge of managing the project itself, and they work in support of the entire facility. But because it is a shared facility, to the benefit, this project in particular, to the benefit of the county, we award it out, manage it, and construct it as part of the shared service. So the actual costs as part of the facilities team are billed to not only the city, but also to the county.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the for the manager? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I would move to award the City County Building DMV renovation project number 21-40 to Diamond Construction in the amount of $241,600.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Halliday,
Aye.
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Loughlin,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Right. Communications proposals from the commission. What say if you? You guys are quiet today. Okay. City Attorney report,
Mayor Collins, Commissioners, nothing to report this evening.
report of the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. Wanted to just flag a couple of things for you. The first is that this week, the moratorium on evictions as a result of COVID, there was a moratorium put onto evictions that ends this week. You'll see we've all gotten emails around the homeless that have had moved into onto Cruz Avenue, various questions in the community, the addition of evictions, and those individuals who may not have paid their rent could actually compound this issue in our community. Today held conversations with a variety of nonprofits in the community, the Housing Authority, United Way, God's Love, and Good Samaritan, to talk about this emergent issue, and then as well a longer term solution. I know that there's been lots of conversations with Good Samaritans. In particular, we're having another one this coming month with the city and county on a solution they have for a temporary urgent solution. But at the end, the Helena Housing Authority and Good Samaritan are working together on a longer term permanent solution. With housing overall, there are really three buckets. There's the urgent homeless, there's the housing stock, and then there's low, moderate income housing. So between those three are a variety of complexities. A lot of conversation recently around low housing stock and not necessarily availability for those who are low to moderate income and those who are unable to pay their rent, because it is now not only has rent not been paid, but also it might have gone up. They are in an even more difficult situation. So tonight I wanted to make sure and remind anyone who is needing to pay their rent that the Department of Commerce has a program for emergency rental assistance. They must apply for the emergency assistance as soon as possible. If it runs out by the end of this month, they cannot get the assistance. They have to be living in their home in order for them to receive the assistance. So if you go on to the Department of Commerce's website and fill out the application, that will start the process. It was slowed, and understand from listening to the nonprofits this week, it was a slower process than perhaps the businesses saw in the PPP program, which was funded through COVID. There have been improvements in this rental assistance. I also understand that it can pay for utility bills. There's also a program for utility bills, mortgage assistance, and then also even looking 3 months into the future. So it's really important that you help get the word out that if people are behind in their rent, they need to get up to speed because the eviction moratorium ends this week. I'll offer also that in the conversation today with our service providers, we talked about some of the complexities in today's situation because I don't have the history that you all might have of what homelessness has looked like in Helena. I needed to hear from these experts and then have them work together on a solution. There are a variety of other local governments that do and handle homelessness in different ways. And what we need are solutions from the community who provide the service that reflect what Helena has going on. Great ideas offered up from lots of other communities. And I'm very pleased to hear that Good Samaritan and Helena Housing Authority, the United Way, and God's Love will all be working together to come up with a solution in the next several days. And this week in particular, very concerned about the moratorium going away. But some added complexities that I heard from this group, I just wanted to make sure to share to you. There are a lot of out-of-state influx of homeless that are choosing a camping situation, but they're coming here because the services are better. So our service offer for healthcare as well as other homeless related services is better than in other states. We've also heard that there's almost a doubling in the amount of homeless. There's also this interest in camping in an encampment in almost a social manner that has increased. You'll see we've talked with them just before the weekend when we had the symphony in town as well as Pride. We spoke and pushed along that the crowd, it had really gotten quite large. And we are also seeing that people are using their mobile homes and living out of their mobile homes and purchasing long-term parking passes. So you'll see the same home RVs in town, and they're using parking passes to maintain those spots. Overall, in talking with United Way, who had done their point in time, their point in time survey was really not as in depth because of COVID, but they last year had 57 in shelter. This year there was 131. And they felt like that number was more reflective of what was accurate in the past. They might not have gotten as good of answers. And they felt pretty strongly that was right. But really this conversation today was around the urgency of the issue at hand, which is the emergency sheltering that could be compounded by those who are evicted. Last, there is and has been a reduction at a state level in dollars made available for case management, as well as the overall pay for case managers who have a bachelor's degree, but they're actually making less than they could be if they were at a food service industry job. And so there's lots of conversation around pay in the Helena community overall. So just a reminder to please help share out to the community the importance of filling out the Emergency Rental Assistance Program documents and information online at the Department of Commerce. If they have any questions, certainly reach out to the Department of Commerce and hop to their website. We'll have more information to you all soon on the work of those nonprofits together on a short-term and a long-term solution. Next, wanted to share to you an update on the release into the 10 Mile Creek above and at Remini. And I know that there was last time conversation and confusion over how much and what was in the creek. On July 12th, the staff were contacted by a resident who was reporting that a mine had blown out, and that's how it was shared to me. The staff then went to our head gates to evaluate whether or not it was impacting our drinking water supply. As I shared last time, it's in our watershed. Our watershed includes our wells, and we have several wells within the city. So the watershed itself was impacted along with the Remini area. Now, our watershed and our drinking water particularly is above where the discharge took place. Again, the watershed includes our wells, but we do not inject those into our drinking water supply currently. The EPA had shared their initial results, and our results are very different than theirs. We did receive results last week, and I think it's important to share. My background is more, has been focused on spills and spill releases and the importance of the anyone who releases into surface water bodies of the US, that they have an obligation to report that, especially if it's an emergency and it's unpermitted. And if you were to look at the EPA's results, the order of magnitude and concentration compared to ours, which were at the discharge point, are nearly 100 times higher for metals than what they had reported. For example, arsenic, for us, our sample was almost 3,000 times higher than the city's discharge permit would allow. So what was in the creek and what had been discharged was very different than had been shared to the community. I was fortunate that one of the citizens who lives in Remini had shared that there was a public meeting. I went to it with our public works director on July 15th. At that time, the EPA shared the importance of having an infusion of dollars to improve their cleanup. And my point, I'll say it again tonight, was to the EPA. I know it's really difficult to clean up, and I get that there's a lot of money that is needed for cleaning up those mines above and at Remini, but they have an obligation to let the city know when there's an emergency by law. That comes as a result of the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act. That act is actually one that helped inform the state constitution of Montana. It is very important, and it is the place from which we all communicate that need for transparency. So I'll share to you, if anyone is interested in the data, that Director Leland can make that available, and I'll be sharing it back up to the citizens who reached out to us. I'm very thankful. As you all shared to me, it's important to have relationships with the community, and I have been focusing on that. We've had really great conversations around a variety of things, and I really appreciate that flag of importance, because it helped not only ensure that I could go to this meeting and listen to the EPA, but also ensure that the citizens feel comfortable calling me and calling our team when there could be an issue. And also thank you to the citizen who reached out to our water plant, because had they not, we might not have if we'd had a more difficult situation, we could have had a slug of something come into our plant and damage our plant. So again, I get that it's about, cleanup and they're working hard, but that's not why I'm concerned. I'm concerned that they can't call 911 when they have an emergency. And I shared that with them as well. I know that Director Leland and the staff at DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, were concerned as well. And I appreciate the work of the team in trying to understand what's happening and support the community. So just wanted to make sure and share that update to you. And we'll continue to work with the EPA to get the best information we can for the community. Thank you. That's my update.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Any questions for the manager?
Mr. Mayor, I have two questions.
Please go ahead.
The first one is on the Department of Commerce Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Can we make sure that gets included maybe on our website and then shared on our social media as well? I know Jake's been doing a great job of making sure we're active there, and I think folks are going to look at it for resources. And then my second question was really grateful for all of your work and the team's work in trying to get to the bottom of this issue with 10 Mile Creek up in Rimini. But I'm wondering what the EPA's response was to you when you reiterated that they have an obligation to keep us informed. And I guess too, what is the next steps and timeline, and what can the community expect to see and win from them? And I guess what is our role in that? That's a lot of questions, sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner. The Department of Environmental Quality is the one who gets to hold the EPA responsible for non-compliance. They note for not notifying all of us. So the response was interesting that when a room is filled with citizens who don't understand the distinctions between what's a group who manage remediation and a group who manages emergencies, it can be difficult to understand why having direct conversations are important. There are two groups that were in the room. That remediation group is a routine group, great group. They're spending a great deal of time trying to clean up those mines. There was another gentleman there, Mr. Nguyen, who had provided the details and also had been interviewed by the independent record. He had already been there for a number of days in advance. And when the EPA calls out their emergency team, there's a reason why they weren't actually there. This Susie mine was one that was further away from the reason why he was there. But having an emergency team on scene means there's something happening. It's not remediation related. And at that point, we should have been notified. Even just as a heads up, if nothing had actually been released, but hey, we've called the emergency team. But then when something actually happened, I asked, why didn't you call? And they just said, we didn't think it was that bad. And really, I think that's exactly what they said at the fire station, which was that the creek has been more orange than it has before, that it was not as bad as it could have been. It actually just doesn't matter. They owed us a call, and they owed it to the people who were playing in that creek that day. And that was really the big picture of it. They owe a conversation to us, and that's at 911. It's not hard to find us. So thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Manager Harlow Schalk, for both of those updates. Relative to the EPA update, is the work that they were involved in completed up there on that particular emergent sort of incident?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I actually Would love to turn that question over to Director Leland. He participated in a tour on Friday with the Department of Environmental Quality and can share an update on what that work is and what the work is above the Suzie mine currently.
Thanks. And I may have one follow-up after, if
You
that's
bet.
okay.
Thank you, Commissioner or Mayor. Commissioner, is they are not complete with it. It was just the first part of this where they needed to, a part of an adit collapsed. And what they were doing is it dammed up all the water, the mine water behind it. So they were just clearing everything out when we had this discharge. It was a little more significant than what we were led to believe. And now that it's, there's still water back there, they brought in a new tank. It's a frac tank that they're going to take all the water and sediment out of it so that now they can come in and then remove the collapsed part of the adit and try and secure it so it stays upright and they can move the water through the mine quicker so it doesn't leach all of the minerals off of the rock. So no, it is just the beginning stages of what they are doing to clean it up.
So, Mr. Mayor,
ahead.
thank you. So what's our responsibility in terms of monitoring from on this particular incident forward? Or what's your role?
Mayor, commissioners, is just as a team, the operating team, that we know that it's going to be there. It really doesn't affect our drinking water supply up there. So we're just going to monitor it as we go up and check our head gates every day. It is close there. So we're going to take a look at that and then stay in touch with them because there is some mine cleanup up above it. In a few different mines, there's hundreds of mines that are up in the Remini area, and there's some water treatment plants that they'll be working on. So as the water operators are up there, they're going to stay in contact with EPA to try and stay informed to make sure what mines that will be worked on and what are the potential hazards if it doesn't succeed like they want to.
Thank you. Appreciate the answer.
Any other comments for the manager or Director Leland? Okay. I'll entertain the motion then. Isn't that the bid? Oh, geez, update, holy crap. Okay. Communications from Helena Citizens Council, Representative Dylan Clapmire. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Collins and Commissioners. This is Dylan Clapmire, the Helena Citizens Council Chairman. Our monthly meeting for July is this coming Wednesday at 7 o'clock. It will be through Zoom. And so the Zoom link is on the city's website if the commissioners or members of the public would like to join us. We're excited to have Public Works Director Ryan Leland and Water Production Superintendent Ben Rigby come give us an update on the water situation. We've been sharing updates from the city through our communication networks with the Helena Citizens Council to let the public know that we are in stage 2 fire restrictions. In addition to that, we'll be introducing new members from districts 5 and 6, and we will be considering a recommendation on the topic of composting. So after we take action on that composting recommendation, we will be sure and share it with you. And I think that's all I have, Mayor and Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Clapmire. Any comments or questions for Mr. Clapmire? Thanks. Regular items. Consider final passage of an ordinance amending City of Helena Ordinance Number 3097 and amending the official zoning map for the City of Helena for a zone change from downtown district to a transitional residential district for Lot A being a portion of Lot H of the Plaza Mining Claim of Getchell and Child as shown on Certificate of Survey number 314987 with a street address of 739 Getchell Street in the City of Helena, Montana. Manager Hollishock.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. Planner 2, Ellie Ray, is here to provide a presentation to you all on this application. And certainly feel free to ask her questions when she's done. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Ray.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an abbreviated version of a previously given presentation. Let me see one thing. Sorry, today, do I need to do anything with respect to the live transcription, closed captioning message that I'm seeing? Okay. All right, thank you. All right. So Mayor and Commissioners, before you tonight is consideration for final passage of an ordinance amending City of Helena Ordinance number 3097 and amending the official zoning map for the city for zone change from downtown district to transitional residential district for Lot A being a portion of Lot H to the placer mining claim of Getchell and Child, as shown on certificate of survey number 3114987 with a street address of 739 Getchell Street in the city of Helena, Montana. So this is just a quick overview of the proposal. This is the vicinity map for the property. So you can see it is highlighted in blue and it is generally located east of Getchell. It's north of Neal, south of Stewart. And as far as properties that surround it are concerned, you have city properties to the west. You've got the K. McKenna Park, the tennis courts, the Civic Center. To the south, some commercial properties. To the east, the Federal Reserve Bank and its parking lot. And to the north, Great Northern Town Center. To the northwest, there is an R3 residential district. And the purpose of this proposal really is to allow the property owner to create slightly lower density, i.e. lower height limitations, but still have mixed use, which meets with the intent of both the current downtown and the proposed transitional residential districts. So they would have commercial offices on site similar to what they have now, but a new structure, as well as they're anticipating 5 condominiums. This project would conform with the growth policy and the state statutory criteria that are evaluated for this type of project. And one of the key things I think to note is that this will net us 5 more dwelling units, as was mentioned earlier by City Manager Harlow Schuck. Housing is at a premium in this community, and finding housing for individuals, it's been proving very difficult. So this would help alleviate some of those issues that have been exacerbated during the pandemic, especially, and as well as meeting with all of the intent of the growth policy and this being a mixed use area. So this proposal went to a public hearing in May with the City Zoning Commission, and it was brought to you on June 21st, where you as a commission unanimously voted 5-0 to approve the zone change, affirming that the proposal is consistent with the growth policy as well as with Montana zoning criteria. So again, the recommendation that would be before you is to move to approve final passage of an ordinance amending City of Helena Ordinance number 3097 and amending the official zoning map for the City of Helena for a zone change from downtown district to transitional residential district for Lot A being portion of Lot H of the placer mining claim of Getchell and Child, as shown on COS number 3114987 with a street address of 739 Getchell Street in the City of Helena, Montana. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have. The applicant herself, unfortunately, is unavailable to join us, so her husband, Peter, is here in her stead if you have questions of them.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. Comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I do just have one.
Please go ahead.
I'm wondering, do we know if this is approved tonight, what the timeline is on when they'll start redeveloping this property?
Mayor and Commissioners, I would have to defer to the applicant on that question.
Is the applicant available? What's her name?
Peter Butler.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, yes, we can.
Peter Butler, property owner there. We'd like to move forward as soon as possible, but we have a lot of work ahead of us in terms of architecture, engineering, plans, permitting. So, I mean, if everything worked out in a perfect world, you know, we could potentially be breaking ground next spring, but I know we have a lot of hurdles in front of us.
Thank you, Mr. Butler.
You bet.
Any other comments or questions from the commission? Okay. Do we have any public comments? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no raised hands and I've received no written public comment. I see no one here in the chambers to make public comment on this item.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion then.
Mr. Mayor, I will move to approve final passage of an ordinance amending City of Helena ordinance number 3097 and amending the official zoning map for the City of Helena for a zone change from DT Downtown District to TR Transitional Residential District for Lot A being a portion of Lot H of the placer mining claim of Getchell and Child as shown on certificate of survey number 3114987 with a street address of 739 Getchell Street in the City of Helena, Montana.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any final discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Halliday,
Aye.
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Loughlin. Aye. Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Consider a resolution of intention to create special improvement lighting district number 399 in the City of Helena, Montana, and set a public hearing for August 23rd, 2021. Manager Hollishaw.
Thank you, Mayor. This lighting district had already been conversation of the commission, and at the last commission meeting, the lighting district was brought back forward. On May 17th, 2021, the commission held a public meeting and voted not to approve the motion of creating this SILT 399. Then on July 12th, the commission voted to reconsider the motion based on information received. This district covers a portion of the Sandpiper Loop in the Skelton Addition, Phase 2, Sequence 1, 2, and 3, and it is a request by Northwest Energy pursuant to Section 7-12-4301 of MCA to create a special improvement lighting district for existing streetlights adjacent to 105 properties north of Roadrunner Street, both sides of Curfew Street, Black Hawk Street, Blue Heron Street, and the north and eastern parts of Sandpiper Loop. Director Danielson is present. Should you have any further questions on this item?
Comments or questions from the commission?
I do
Go
have one
ahead.
more. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if the city manager or Director Danielson would want to answer this. It's correct that if more than 50% of the homeowners protested this, if it were to pass today, and the notices go out, if more than 50% protested, it automatically is killed for, is it 6 months?
I can answer that, Commissioner and Mayor. So what that would happen is then the resolution just would not come forward, and the Northwestern Energy would have to wait another 6 months in order to bring the petition to the commission again.
Okay. Can I follow up?
Please.
And then I know earlier in the year, we had a number of folks around the community who wanted to take out some of the streetlights in various parts of the community. Could that, say, for example, this passes tonight and it comes to us and it were to pass at the final meeting, could residents of this neighborhood who did not want streetlights follow that petition process to have them removed, and would that remove them from this?
So Mayor and Commissioners, it's my understanding that yes, if there's a majority of the homeowners that would like a particular streetlight or a section of streetlights removed, they can file a petition with the city, and then we go through the motions of bringing it to the commission for consideration, protest period, and then come back. Although I don't know that we need a protest period if it reduces the cost, but I'll have to check in regards to that. I have a similar petition in my office now that's being considered to remove a particular alley light that is shining, and so into the backyard, and somewhat of a nuisance according to the homeowners. And so I will be bringing that as a petition to remove the lights. And so the majority of the homeowners asked to have that particular light removed. So yes, it is a possibility to remove the lights.
Okay, and I guess, Mr. Mayor, I would just ask if this does end up passing tonight and we have it goes out for public, the 15-day period, if we could include in that meeting a presentation of what that process looks like for homeowners to follow, would that be possible?
I can submit like a separate process aside from the actual bringing forth the resolution. I'm happy to do that.
That'd be awesome. Great. Thank you.
Jordan?
Yeah, Mayor Collins, Commissioner Dean, I wanted to clarify. The petition to remove the light just removes the light, it doesn't remove the property from the district. So the property owner would still be paying an assessment if this district were created.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? Please go ahead.
Thank you. So assuming this resolution passes, the public comment period is from now till August 20. How long is the public comment period?
Approximately 2 weeks. I think
Okay.
the hearing is, I gave them until I apologize. It's in August, so but it's plenty of time. It's a 15-day period from the date of the first public notice, which is tomorrow, and then they'll have 15 days to appeal that or write their protest or their comments, and then I'll formulate that and we'll put it into the packet for the actual resolution to be considered by the commission on the 23rd of August.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Thank you, Mayor. I think a question perhaps for Director Danielson. So I'm looking at the packet of information that we have, and I just want to confirm. So I'm looking at what I think is the notice that will go out to each of the residents, and included in this, there's a highlighted section that indicates that you all would just be providing the estimate of how much this would be in the first year and then the second year. And so am I right that just looking at the table that's provided later in the packet, it appears that for, I would imagine, single family dwellings, we're talking about an increase in their property tax assessment by somewhere around $400 to $450 in the first year?
Commissioner Laughlin, that is correct.
Okay. And then I don't know if you know this offhand, but I'm wondering if there are any properties. My understanding is that there are some properties in the Skelton addition that were financed through low-income housing tax credits and are deemed sort of affordable units, generally with, income levels somewhere between 30 to 60% of area median income. Do you know whether or not any of those units are within the area reflected here?
Commissioner Laughlin, I don't have any of that statistical data for the district, no.
Is it possible to get just information as to whether or not there were any units that were financed through the tax credit program?
I'm going to turn it over to Director Hogan, which she might be able to answer that question.
Do you have the map?
It's just there in here. It's small, sorry.
Well, Commissioner, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, as I'm looking through this, it appears that what is commonly referred to as Ptarmigan and those projects there look to be outside. It only appears that with the boundary of the map I'm looking at, only the single family homes north of Roadrunner have been included. At least according to the boundary that I'm looking at in the in the packet. I'd be happy to
Thank
answer
you.
any questions you might have.
Mayor.
Commissioner, you still have the floor.
Nope, those were my only two questions. Thank you.
Hey, thanks. Any other comments or questions from the commission?
I did have one final question.
You have one final?
That's it.
I'm holding you to it.
Yeah. So since this is within ordinance, these rates are in the second year will be consistent with what the average Helena homeowner pays for streetlights. Is that correct?
Yes, it does vary by district and, how many lights there are and how many properties are within the district. I've seen some of the costs vary with some of these most recent petitions, but they're relatively consistent. The city reviews the annual cost. So once if the resolution is passed for a light district, then the city assumes the costs of the billing. Northwestern Energy then bills the city, and then we calculate what the costs are of the lights, and then we calculate what the rate's going to be, and then that comes forward with the annual assessment rates. And so looking at the most recent resolution that we passed at the end of June, they're fairly consistent. Some are a little bit higher, some are lower, just depending upon the number of properties that are sharing the costs of the lights.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. One more question.
Please.
So if we do not pass this resolution, what happens with the existing lighting?
So Northwestern Energy did come and have comment before the commission and did indicate that they could potentially take the lights out of the district. Currently, Northwestern Energy is paying for the costs of the lights. That's inconsistent with how the lighting districts are managed in the city. The city will will either be petitioned by, typically will be petitioned by a developer, and then the lighting district created, and then the city assumes the costs of the lights, and then the city then passes those lights off back to the residents or citizens that are in the boundaries of the district. Northwestern Energy has indicated that they could potentially take the lights out of the district if we don't move forward with the resolution of intention, and then later the resolution to pass the lighting district.
Thank you, Ms. Danielson. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just as a clarification, I mean, I'll just point out, I looked at my tax bill pretty quickly. I pay $34 a year for my lighting district on my property. So it's all dependent on the cost Northwestern is telling us they want, not on, right? Like, I have no idea why it's $53 a year. I think Mr. Leland's told me before, that's just a historic anachronism that districts get charged that. So it's pretty arbitrary with regard to the charge on lighting districts.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments?
I'm wondering, I know that, Mr. Mayor, I think I saw that Howard was on here from Northwestern.
I'll be calling.
Okay. And
I'm clearing the commission first. Any other comments from the commission? Okay, do we have any public comments? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I have no hands raised at this time. I take that back. I do
Yeah.
now. First, I have Rick Edwards.
Go ahead, Mr. Edwards. You have the floor.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, hopefully you can hear me. I have the opportunity to visit with you this evening. Again, I appreciate your considering this or reconsidering this. We strongly encourage the passage of this resolution. We believe it's a good thing for a number of reasons. From a safety perspective, from a security perspective, convenience perspective, aesthetics, all those sorts of things. Just a little bit of background. These lights have been out there since the early 2000s, about 2004. And as I mentioned when I visited with you last time, for whatever reason, that street lighting district, it didn't follow through or get followed through. And so these lights have been out there since that period of time, and they have not been built. And so when we talk about this area, there's 105 property owners, there's 50 lights, they're all acorn type lights. When we went through the process the last time and actually received comment back, as I mentioned, there were 7 letters of protest. 5 of those were actual protests. The other 2 were just folks that said, we understand and appreciate the consideration for this. We strongly believe that this is the right answer, and that your constituents believe this is the right answer. And we would encourage you to reconsider this and pass this resolution this evening. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer it. But again, most importantly, thank you for this reconsideration.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Do we have any other comments, public comments?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no other hands raised from the public. I've received no written public comment. There's no one in chambers to make public comment. It does appear that Commissioner O'Loughlin does have her hand raised, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Thank you, Mayor. So perhaps maybe a question for Mr. Edwards. I have 2 questions. So maybe I'll just start with the first. What is the average annual assessment for a residence in Montana for a lighting district?
Commissioner, I would refer that to Mr. Howard Shervum, who is also on the line. He may know that answer. Otherwise, I'm not aware of it right now, but I could get that answer for you.
Thank you, Mr. Edward. Howard, are you on?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, yes, I am.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. The amount of the average charge for residents that are paying on their property tax does vary greatly. And it does, as Commissioner Halliday mentioned, it depends on the area of town you're in, the type of lights, the year that the lights were installed. Commissioner O'Loughlin, I would love to be able to give you that average. I don't have that in front of me, but what we do is the reason it varies depending on the area of town is the actual costs, which includes the product, the installation, the labor, the underground or overhead lighting, wiring that's there. All of that is put into a matrix that's created by the Montana Public Service Commission. And so it's a very consistent process that happens across the state based on the matrix of costs that the Montana Public Service Commission has. As Mr. Edwards mentioned, we can get more accurate information to get an average. I wish I could tell you that tonight. I apologize, but we'll get that for you. But it's all based on the lighting matrix that's created by the Montana Public Service Commission based on our actual costs.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Howard. That's very helpful. I guess maybe just one quick follow-up on that question. So looking at this table that we have with sort of the, the range of around $400 to $450 annually for the first year, is that on the high end, would you say? Or, how does that compare with other assessments for lighting districts in Helena?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner. It's a great question. And one of the things to remember is the first year, the city charges extra because they have to build up the reserve to be able to pay for the amounts that are going to be coming down the line. That's why you'll note the second year, the costs go down. And the costs that go down to in the second year, in my opinion, based on the lighting districts that we've seen, that I'm aware of, that would be in the average range. There are some, of course, less, some higher, but these, again, as Mr. Edwards said, were put in the early 2000s, and the 200 and some per year after the first year, after that reserve is built up, that I do believe is in the average range.
Thank you, Howard.
So that just maybe, now I have another question. What exactly is the reserve? So given that these were installed in 2001, could you explain what's the reserve for?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, I may defer to Ms. Danielson on this because she understands the way the taxing works better than I would. But my understanding, and Ms. Danielson, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that the city will start paying for lighting before a whole year's worth of taxes are charged on property taxes to residents. I believe that's correct.
Commissioner O'Laughlin, that is correct. The city has to take on the cost of the lighting and start paying for the lighting prior to an entire year's assessment on the lights. And that's what establishes the cash flow reserve to pay the bills.
Commissioner?
Yeah, I'm not sure I totally understand. So maybe if this moves forward, we could have a further conversation. So we're charging what appears to be a pretty significant, almost, I guess not double, but it's, for some residents, it is double in the first year. And that's to cover our costs for the first year.
Commissioner O'Laughlin, we're required to, as soon as the resolution is passed, the city assumes the cost of the lights. And so, for example, if this resolution is brought before the commission in August and it's approved, I then notify Northwestern Energy that the resolution is passed and that we will assume the costs of the light. Then the city then has to start paying for the lights well before we even get our first round of assessments that are being paid to the city, not likely until April. And that's only, typically half of what a resident owes for the entire year. So it helps us build a cash flow reserve because of the delay in collecting the assessments.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. And then I just have one final question for Northwestern. So I don't know if this is for Mr. Edwards or for Howard, but if the commission does not move forward with this resolution, what will Northwestern do?
I will respond to that, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner. A couple things. First of all, I want to circle back to a previous question and clarify that while these lights have been there since the early 2000s and have not been paid for, we are not proposing to go back and try and recover any of those costs. If you approve this resolution and the street lighting district ultimately gets created, it will be handled on a go-forward basis. So just so everyone is on the same page there. In regard to the existing lights that they're out there, we as a company have no ability to provide free service. And so we would have, if the resolution is not passed, we would have no choice but to go out and actually remove the lights. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks, I think that creates some issues that really need some significant consideration, especially in terms of safety for those residents, security, obviously the aesthetics. These are nice looking lights. They're acorn style lights and it's a convenience. But again, we cannot provide free service going forward. So we would have no choice but to actually go out and remove those lights. Mr. Mayor, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Any other comments or questions from the commission or public comments?
Mr. Mayor, just one follow-up. I had the same question as Commissioner O'Loughlin in terms of the average cost to a Montanan paying this. And so if we can get that information from Northwestern, that would be really great. And I'm also wondering if we could get a copy of the PSC lighting matrix as well, just so we can better understand what actually goes into developing these costs.
Did you get that, Mr. Edward and Howard?
Mr. Mayor, yes, we'll get that information for you.
Thank you.
Maybe a follow-up question, Mr. Mayor. So in getting that information, Mr. Edwards, Mr. Sturgeon, would the information you're going to provide us let us know the breakdown of how you reached sort of that dollar amount per house? Is this the cost of electricity? Is this the cost of amortized poles over time? Is this the expected life value? Is that the kind of thing we're going to be able to see almost on a house property by property basis with what you're providing us?
I don't believe it will be on, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Commissioner, I don't believe it'll be on a property by property basis, but we will provide the information to you in the form and in the manner in which those costs are calculated.
Are those costs calculated on sort of a statewide level?
As Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, as Mr. Sherva mentioned, there is a matrix that's approved by the Public Service Commission. There is that particular matrix and the associated tariff is provided or administered across the state of Montana, consistent with all different types of lighting.
I mean, is there a way to pull from this district what this district cost last year, say, to provide electricity to?
I suspect there would be, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner.
I mean, do we know that the cost?
While we can do that, I do want to make the point, though, that regardless of what the costs were last year, when everything is factored into the matrix and the cost for the lighting district is established, that's the number that's going to be used. And so while we've provided this service essentially free of charge for about 17 years, you know, the only thing that really would be different between last year and this year is the actual change in the electricity or supply costs that you might see.
Okay, I'm a little confused. I thought you said we couldn't rely on the electricity or supply costs because of the matrix.
The ownership charge itself that's out in the tariff itself recovers the infrastructure charges. Again, what I'd like to do, Mr. Mayor and Commissioner, we do have Sarah Norcott on the line as well with us, and I think she can probably more clearly address the commissioner's questions. If I could defer to her.
Yes, please. Go ahead, Ms. Norcott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Sarah Norcott, representing Northwestern Energy. Just to elaborate on what Mr. Edwards was saying, the ownership matrix that the Montana Public Service Commission approves in a Northwestern electric general rate filing is to only recover the cost of the infrastructure itself. So the light, the lens, the pole, the underground wiring. So that matrix that was referenced earlier is only to recover those ownership costs. Those ownership matrix does change or do change with rate reviews based on current costs of the utility. But the other charges that the district would see are the cost of the electricity itself, which changes either annually or with Northwestern's electricity supply filing that is made with the Montana Public Service Commission, or the property tax filing that's made with the Montana Public Service Commission. Additionally, there is an ownership and maintenance charge within the tariff that's approved by the commission that the district would see. And all of those charges are reflected in the tariff that we could provide the commission, and you could then calculate based on the number of lights what this district would have paid, recognizing that maybe the cost would be slightly different for electricity, just because that does change more regularly than the other costs.
Thank you, Ms. Norcross.
And so then just to be clear, the cost that's being placed on these properties is charging them some amount for the installation of the lights 20 years ago.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Sarah Norcross again. Yes, I mean, that's the purpose of the ownership charge, is to recover the cost of the infrastructure. It's, you know, we're not going back and trying to collect the cost of electricity that Northwestern has put out our maintenance of these lights. But, you know, we are trying to recover the cost of our installation. Mr. Sherburne would have to speak to whether or not how those costs were derived. But the point of the ownership charge is to recover the infrastructure costs.
And I guess a follow-up probably for Howard. I think in our memo, it indicated that these lights are probably in the process of getting swapped out. And I know Northwestern either has a capital outlay out there or got money, I'm sure, from some federal grants in the process. Though I assume that that installation is going to be passed back to all of these property owners at a later date. So are these owners being charged for the old installation, 2 decades ago, and then are going to be imposed with a new charge when Northwestern installs the new lights as well?
Howard, you have the floor.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, thank you. The charge that we have provided to the city is based on the initial capital outlay that was taken place back in the early 2000s when those were put in. So you are correct in the fact that the charge is for the existing structures as they sit right now. As you're aware, we worked pretty diligently with Sustainability Coordinator Patrick Judge to come up with a light, which actually a couple of the commissioners at the League of Cities and Town Conference a couple of years ago found that's a dark skies. That is a replacement for the Acorn. And so those are now just starting to be replaced in town. And if this district is approved, then those lights will also be put into the mix to have the dark skies LED fixtures installed on those. As far as the cost for those, I apologize for this, but I would then defer back to Ms. Norcott.
Commissioner? You do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out if we're charging them for an installation now and we're charging them for another installation sort of immediately thereafter. That's all I'm trying to get at.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, we are not charging them twice for installations. What will happen, first of all, you referred to our LED replacement project that is going on as we speak. We're in the process of changing out a significant number of lights across the state of Montana. To one of the comments made earlier, we did not receive any federal grants, to my knowledge, to help with that project. What will happen, as Mr. Shervin was mentioning, is that at some point, those lights in this district, if approved, would be changed out to LEDs, and the customers would not see any type of increasing charges until a formal rate case would be filed down the road. And at that time, what they do is they look at all of the different components related to a rate case, not just lighting, not just an SILD or anything like that. They bring all the costs together and do a series of processes called allocated cost of service where they allocate those costs out to the particular classes of customers. What will end up happening down the road is really at this point an unknown. And it would depend on all the pieces and parts that are within that filing, not just the fact that these lights have been increased or have been changed out.
Maybe just one or two more, Mr. Mayor. So if these lights have been there, essentially Northwestern's been carrying the cost of them, as you said, for a couple decades. Are those costs electricity, amortization of the capital, maintenance, all the other fun stuff that goes into this tariff schedule? Have those just been getting aggregated and placed into sort of the statewide number, or to put it simply, when I pay my $34 a year, am I paying for a portion of this district since it wasn't getting allocated to those individuals? Are you guys just taking the amount that this district costs, putting it into a number, dividing by the remaining properties, and am I actually paying for it over the last 2 decades?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, I'd like Sarah Norcott to respond to that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Sarah Norcott. The short answer is no. All customers, to my knowledge, would not have been paying for these costs. I don't believe, as I understand it, Northwestern was not aware that this lighting district even existed until we started our street lighting LED project. And we did an inventory, we discovered the lights, and we've been working with the city for the last, I think, year and a half, almost 2 years, to get this resolution before you so that these lights could be paid. Because we didn't know about them, those costs were not in customer rates, to my knowledge, and those costs would only be in customer rates if there was through a rate review. And the last one we had before the Montana Public Service Commission was in 2018, 2019 with a 2017 test year, which would have been before we knew about these lights.
Thank you, Ms. Norcott. Commissioners, any final comments from the public? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no hands raised at this time. I have no written public comment, and no one in chambers appears to be here to make public comment on this item.
Okay, so let's do it. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve a resolution of intention to create special improvement lighting district number 399 in the city of Helena, Montana, and set a public hearing for August 23, 2021.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I know Commissioner Halliday had a number of questions that many of which were answered, but I do hope that we can get some of that other information that Commissioner Lachlan had asked for, and also the matrix before, if it passes, before the public hearing. Yep.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Halliday,
No.
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Loughlin,
Nay.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 3-2.
Public hearings. Consider a resolution granting conditional use permit to allow a 3-dwelling unit in the residential R3 T number 12 zoning district in the city of Helena, Montana. Manager Hollishaw.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. You'll see that Planner Ellie Ray is prepared to provide another presentation on this resolution, again, granting the conditional use permit. And you have any questions after this presentation, Ms. Ray is here, as am I. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners and City Manager Harlow-Schuck. Tonight, you're being asked to, as was mentioned, consider a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow a 3-dwelling unit in the residential R3T number 12 zoning district in the City of Helena, Montana. The property in question is shown on this map in blue. It is 1240 Cannon Street. It is north of Cannon, east of Allison Street. And for reference, the applicant is seeking to get the conditional use permit so that they can create a 3-unit residential condominium structure on the property. This would be at the north end of his lot. It would be roughly 6,000 gross floor area, feet in total, about 2,000 square feet for the actual ground level of the property, of the structure. And he would propose to retain his existing single-family dwelling unit that he resides in. Per the requirements of this particular R3 T number 12 district, CUPs are required for any use that would otherwise be permitted by right in the R3 district other than single-family residential uses. And that is why this application is before you. The reason that is if you look at the district intent statement for the R3T number 12, the purpose of it is to create a buffer between the existing residential uses and the commercial uses that are to the north of it. This district exclusively covers the stretch that extends from Mountain View in the west to, apologies, I'm getting muddled in my head. I have to write them down. Sorry, Mountain View in the west over to Harrison in the east, and it runs south of the alley that separates the commercial uses that face Euclid from Cannon Street. And in our code, we define multiple dwelling units residence as a building containing 3 or more dwelling units for occupancy by 3 or more groups living separately from each other, including condominiums. So here are some vicinity photos for the properties that surround 1240 Cannon Street. So you can see here to the north, you have some views of looking along Allison Street and then just looking north from Cannon Street past the alley to the slightly newer Burger King that is currently on Euclid. And to the south is C.R. Anderson Middle School. And to the west is the ball fields for the school and the track fields. And these are some views from the east. So you can see on the bottom left-hand side, just a view along Cannon Street. And on the other photos on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see views generally along the alley. Where you see that 2-car garage, that is part of the existing property that is going to be sold and relocated elsewhere in the community. And that space will generally be where the new condominiums would be built. In evaluating a conditional use permit, the City Commission has to consider whether the following standards are met: that the CUP will not significantly increase risk to public health, safety, or general welfare, and nor will it reduce or impair the peaceful use of existing property or improvements in the vicinity and the zoning district in which the property is located. There are also 12 additional factors that have to be considered when looking at the CUP, as are listed on the screen. And in evaluating all those factors, I just want to run through an evaluation of some of those criteria. The overall character of the area, as you could see in those vicinity photos, is generally a blend of residential and commercial and educational uses. I will say with respect to residential for this R3 T12 strip that you have a blend of single family homes that are owner occupied, some are rentals, there are duplexes, there are some multifamily dwelling units that are also in the area. So there is a range as it stands. The area is designated as a mixed use area for the whole entirety of that strip in the growth policy. And that is listed as a place where people can work, live, play, and learn, where there are complementary uses and denser development patterns, which aligns with what is proposed by the applicant. All buildings and uses within the city have to comply with our code requirements, be they building, fire, or zoning codes. And as shown in the application that was provided in the meeting packet for you tonight, this proposal will meet with the district dimensional standards for the R3 district that are in Title 11, Chapter 4. This property currently is and will continue to be served by the Helena PD and the fire department. With respect to traffic generation, it's not expected to produce more than 20 vehicle trips per day, which is expected to have minimal to no effect on the existing street network, sidewalk system, vehicular traffic in the area. and vehicular and bike travel will continue to be accommodated in the existing city rights of way. Sidewalks are currently installed on Allison in order to access the school property, presumably, and they are currently in the process of being installed, I believe, along the Cannon Street frontage, as would be required with the development of new principal dwelling units on the parcel. Off-street parking for the new condominiums would actually be provided via access off of the alley. The proposal shows tuck under garages as well as 20-foot long driveways, so there are 2 spaces per unit. With respect to climate change and carbon emissions, given that this is a denser infill development as proposed within a mixed-use area, the expectation is that it would be lesser than in other areas in the community because there are ample bike ped amenities and other uses in the area that the residents might avail themselves of. There is not any conflict with respect to hours of operation, noise, glare, or odor that would require mitigation with this proposal, as it's residential uses that are going in within a heavily residential area. This land use case was noticed in the Helena Independent Record on May 30th for the Zoning Commission hearing that took place in June, on June 15th. And for tonight's meeting, it was noticed on July 11th. On June 15th, when this went before the Helena Zoning Commission, the zoning commissioners voted unanimously 3-0 to recommend passage of a resolution to allow this condominium CUP. And as of today, we have not received any public comment either in support of or opposition to the proposal. In conclusion, the proposed use will not adversely impact the public health, safety, or general welfare, nor will it adversely impact or impair the peaceful use of the existing property improvements in the vicinity and zoning district in which the property is located. The recommendation before you tonight is to move to approve a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow a 3-dwelling unit in the residential R3T number 12 zoning district in the city of Helena, Montana. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you have. The applicant, Eric Gorman, I believe, is also available to answer questions if you have any of him.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. Comments or questions from the commission?
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
Ms. Ray, in here, and then in your slides, it talks about that we do notice send letters to the adjacent property owners. Is it just those who are directly next to the property or any others in the neighborhood?
Mayor and commissioners, it is not just the neighbors who are immediately adjacent, it's all those within 150 feet of the proposed property. There, I believe, are fewer than 15 that went out, in large part because a lot of the property is owned by the school district.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments from the commission? Do we have any public comments? Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no hands raised online, no written public comment, and no one in chambers here to make comment on this item.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I will move to approve a resolution granting a conditional use permit to allow a 3-dwelling unit in the residential R3T number 12 zoning district in the city of Helena, Montana.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have any final discussion? Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Halliday.
Aye.
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public wishes to address the commission? Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no written public comment and no hands raised online. It appears no one in chambers tonight for general public comment.
Any final comments from the commission? Without further ado, this meeting is adjourned.